over the break, you guys saw, right, that Giovanni Bernard ended up in an incident where a whole lot of people sided with him, his humanity as an athlete in the locker room, because there had been a botched punt situation in a Tampa Bay game, and he's trying to leave the locker room, Stugotz. Do you guys know what I'm talking about here?
Yeah.
He's trying to leave the locker room after having screwed up a game, and the exchange with reporters is contentious. And the reporters, you couldn't hear him say, now you guys want to talk to me? But the reporters came after him with, why would we talk to you? You've been injured all year. And it seemed like everyone in social media sided immediately with Giovanni Bernard in a delicate moment in the locker room because of the entitlement of reporters. People really hate reporters, okay? We saw with fake news and everything else, it's one of the most hated professions. If I go around and ask people what's something you hate, media is going to get a lot of it. And so people immediately, zealously in the social media age just sided so quickly with Giovanni Bernard that Jenna Laine, one of the reporters who put out the video for ESPN, her apology, I thought, was way too profuse because of the beating she must have taken from people mad that she would ask Giovanni Bernard a perfectly reasonable question indelicately or felt inhumanely. As he says, can I just get out to my family? Which, of course, saying it that way. No, but Giovanni, you blew the game and you were trying to get out of the locker room without talking to reporters, and contractually, it's part of the deal. Like, you're kind of paid for that access, and while they seem to be indelicate jerks about it in a sensitive situation, Giovanni Bernard was not maximum professional there. He was trying to sneak out a side door.
Right.
And Greg Cody's always going to side with the entitlement of the reporter. Stugotz's always going to side with the entitlement of the fan. I get to behave this way with the athlete. But I'm curious what you guys made of that exchange, because I thought Jenna Laine, her apology was way too profuse. Like, it seemed like she was under a great deal of duress because that moment was something that she gave to the world, and everyone seemed to be siding with Giovanni Bernard.
Well, I generally do agree with the media and the reporter, and I do in this case. However, you know, when you're asking the hardest, toughest questions, you have to do it the softest you can. You have to have tact. Professionally, you can ask whatever you want. You can be as indelicate as you want. But from a human standpoint, you have to have sympathy for these players. You know, they're real human beings. If you're going up to a player after a game who has just muffed a punt that was returned for a touchdown, and he is clearly responsible for his team just losing, you have to go into that sympathetically, not harsh, and you have to treat that player with respect. Like, geez, this has to be one of the lowest moments of your life. I'm sorry I even have to be here asking, but I have to ask.
But what if his initial response is, now you guys want to talk to me, while leaving the room?
Well, you did something that's worthy of us talking to you. Sorry. Like, what you've done up until now, good or bad, wasn't worth us asking you any question. You weren't playing. You were injured.
That doesn't need to be said.
Right, exactly. In that moment, how do you say that? Or, like, I mean, you really would just say, you were involved in the most important play of the game. We want to get your perspective on it.
And also, we're here after you score a touchdown, too. Remind him about that.
But he also doesn't need to say, oh, now you want to talk to me? Because he knows, he's smart enough, he was out. What was there to talk to him about?
He's an hour removed from the only thing that he did this season that was a disaster. Like,
I know.
From a human standpoint. And also, like, part of the media game, and Greg can speak to this more than me, is, like, over the course of the year, beat reporters who are there every day are attempting to build relationships to where you can speak to people on a human level. And if no one has made the effort to speak to him on a human level at any point over the first 19 weeks, including preseason and training camp of the year, and all of a sudden you want to come around whenever I make my biggest mistake, you can understand the loss of humanity in that.
It's also getting harder and harder, and Greg can speak to this, but it is getting harder and harder because of the pandemic and teams not wanting you around their players. Access is less valuable. It's more valuable to us than it is to them. Only we have to gain from the access. All Giovanni Bernard gets there is we get our viral moment. He gets his shitty moment. The Tampa Bay Bucs don't want any of that. We're not providing a public service. We're only feeding ourselves with our entitlement there.
But as you pointed out, he has an obligation as an NFL player to go to the podium after the game, and he was trying to go out a side door. I guarantee you, if he scored the winning touchdown, he'd be the first one at the podium. Hey, fire away. Ask me questions. Right. I scored the game winner.
And there has to be a mutual respect between reporters and the subjects they're covering.
Does there?
Well, I think it's valuable to the relationship that works for both. But
what if you're not valuable to the player? What if the reason you exist as a reporter to the player is someone to get that gotcha moment that makes you feel shitty? Like what is deteriorating in the access is the teams and the players and the humans in the middle of this are saying, what do we need this beat reporter here all the time to film this thing? No, we'll bring Josh Allen out. He'll come to the microphone, say nothing, and then walk away, and we will avoid anything. We will give you the illusion of access. It'll just be a few words, and I don't need to help you do your job anymore. I don't need you anymore. I got Amazon Prime. What do I need Greg Cody for anymore?
That's 100% correct. And that's why when Tua Tagovailoa, after throwing 3 fourth-quarter interceptions, shows up and answers every single question and looks you in the eye when he's doing it and could not be kinder in that low moment for him, let alone he may have been concussed when he was doing that post-game access, you respect that. And so you treat him kinder because he treats you kind, okay? You don't go up to Tua and say, man, you stunk today. What's up with those 3 interceptions? You have to couch it more humanely than that. You just do.
It was an awkward situation. And like you said, like the access in the locker room has always been something that I think has been contentious because players want privacy, but there also isn't a forum like that where you're having like kind of an intimate, one-on-one conversation in the locker room with a player right after a game. And there haven't been a lot of opportunities to build those relationships since COVID because locker room access was banned for the last 2 seasons. This is the first year that it's been back since 2019. So it's a really awkward and uncomfortable situation. And I think like that video was difficult to watch. Like it was difficult to watch both sides of it. I can see how it got out of hand from the reporter standpoint because it immediately got confrontational. And just the nature of doing like a locker room interview is pretty confrontational. You have to go up to the player and basically like ask them questions, demand a reaction from them. And obviously Bernard, I thought he handled it actually pretty well because it was a very difficult situation for him to be in too. But I can kind of see both sides of it and how that spiraled and became very uncomfortable very quickly and how he wouldn't want to have anything to do with those reporters and they maybe didn't give the correct or like the most tactful approach to him given how stressful that situation was.
I think we're headed to, and you guys tell me whether you think this is incorrect or not. I think we will look back at this time and it will feel 20 years from now like reporters traveling by train with players, that they're going to eliminate this access, that Adam Silver, even with the broadcast fees, as long as they get mic'd up for sound and they can get their little contractual illusions of, look, we're near the field, we're on the field, I think we're going to arrive at a day. Silver's already there. His players have told him, like, I'm getting dressed. Do I really need somebody? Do I really need some stranger invasively? And if it's a situation where Draymond Green and Jordan Poole, something is going on after the 10-minute cooling off period, do these millionaires who are at work at their offices, do they really need Greg Cody wandering around the locker room while they get dressed trying to do their jobs?
Ask Greg Cody that.
Well, back in the day, you'd see a bunch of naked players walking around. You don't see that anymore. I mean, that aspect of the job has totally changed.
I don't think that part's changed completely.
Well, that part has changed by my perspective.
Well, has it changed or has it not changed? They're either naked in the locker room.
It was more common. The entire team was naked back when
No.
Greg was doing it.
Generally speaking.
Well, now there's more cameras. I think players have gotten like more like used to, I don't want to end up in the background of someone's iPhone camera video. So maybe that has changed a little bit.
Well,
but
also
it is still like a super, like, you have to be a professional when you're in there and understand that, like, there's guys doing stuff that you maybe, like, don't look that way or ignore, and you just have to navigate it professionally.
Stugotz has a conga line of nude football players in a 1980s, the Killer Bees in an 80s locker room.
Were they all naked?
When was the last time Stugotz was in a locker room?
No, but it's been a while, but Greg was in those locker rooms. Were the Killer Bees all naked?
Back in the 80s and 90s, nudity in post-game locker rooms was common. It is not today, by my perspective. But here's the thing.
What does this mean by my perspective? Why do you have a different perspective on this than Jessica has?
Because I don't mean to contradict her. If she says
you're in the locker room way more than I have been over the last whatever.
But in your few
however many
appearances,
years.
you've
100
seen
years.
a nudity that evidently Cody is now blind to.
my experience is more in line with Greg's, honestly. Like I covered the Heat fairly regularly for 4 or 5 years, and the Dolphins. I've been in all the major South Florida, and I have not seen that many penises, to be honest.
And it used to be
Thanks,
way
Chris.
opposite.
What? No, like you don't see nudity very much.
Right.
You just don't.
And-
See a bare ass once in a while?
Every once in a while.
And by the way, a 340-pound guard walking nude through a locker room is nothing you want to see.